Chapter 1. The Magic of Storytelling. Hi, I am Natasha, and today I am going to talk about the wonderful world of English storytelling. Have you ever listened to a story and felt completely captivated, waiting to hear what happens next? That's the magic of storytelling. It grabs our attention and keeps us curious. But did you know that storytelling is also one of the best ways to improve your English? Yes, that's right. Stories not only entertain us, but also teach us new words, expressions, and even help us become better speakers. Storytelling is the art of sharing events, real or imagined, in a way that keeps listeners interested. When you listen to a story, you pick up on how sentences are formed, how words are used, and even how idioms make everything more exciting. Idioms are phrases where the meaning isn't exactly what the words say, but they add color and expression to a story. We'll talk more about idioms soon. But first, why is storytelling so important for learning English? Stories are filled with rich vocabulary and grammar. When you hear or read stories, you're naturally learning how English works, without even realizing it. Your brain absorbs new words and sentence structures, which helps you use them when you speak. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're telling someone about a surprising event in your life. You could say, "Something unexpected happened," or you could use the idiom, "out of the blue." Doesn't the second one sound more fun? Like, "Her call came out of the blue." It adds excitement and keeps the listener curious. Here are some other idioms that are often used in stories. A blessing in disguise. This means something that seems bad at first, but turns out to be good. For example, losing that job was a blessing in disguise because I found a much better one. Keep an eye on. This means to watch something or someone carefully. For example, I'll keep an eye on the time so we don't miss the show. A piece of cake. This means something is very easy. For example, that test was a piece of cake. See how these idioms add flavor to simple sentences? They make your English more engaging. As the famous author Philip Pullman said, "After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world." Stories teach us about life, and they also teach us about language. Now, you might be wondering how you can start using storytelling to improve your English. The best way is to listen to stories and practice retelling them in your own words. You can start with simple stories and gradually move to more complex ones. You can also write short stories of your own and include idioms like the ones we've just learned. Try using break the ice or out of the blue in your own sentences to make them more interesting. If you want to learn more about how to use storytelling to improve your English, I've uploaded videos on my channel that can help you. There, you'll find storytelling tips and exercises that make learning fun and easy. Don't forget to check them out. Before we end this chapter, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a favorite story or idiom that you've heard before? Share it in the comments below. I'll be reading your stories and can't wait to see how creative you can be. Chapter 2. How Stories Improve Your English. Welcome back. Now that we've explored the magic of storytelling, let's dive deeper into how stories can actually help improve your English. Stories are much more than just entertainment. They are powerful tools that can help you learn new vocabulary, improve your grammar, and even perfect your pronunciation. Isn't that exciting? The best part is, you learn all of this without even feeling like you're studying. When you listen to or read a story, you're absorbing the language naturally. Think about it. When you hear a story, you're exposed to new words, phrases, and sentence structures in context. This means you get to see how these words are used in real life. Instead of memorizing boring word lists, you can pick up new vocabulary in a way that's fun and memorable. Let's look at how storytelling can improve different parts of your English. 1. Vocabulary building. One of the greatest benefits of listening to stories is that they are packed with new words. You can hear words in action, making it easier to understand their meaning. For example, in a story, you might hear the idiom, hit the nail on the head. Now, what do nails have to do with anything? This idiom means to be exactly right about something. For instance, when she explained why the plan wouldn't work, she really hit the nail on the head. Stories also help you remember these idioms and phrases because they are used in interesting contexts. Think about the idiom, bite the bullet. This means doing something difficult that you've been avoiding. For example, I didn't want to apologize, but I had to bite the bullet and say I was wrong. In the context of a story, idioms like this stick in your mind more easily. 2. Improving grammar stories also show you how grammar is used in real life. Instead of learning rules from a book, you can see how those rules work in action. For example, when you hear a story in the past tense, you learn how to talk about things that have already happened. Phrases like, once upon a time there was, teach you how to begin a story, while idioms like burn the midnight oil, which means working late into the night, give you a natural way to express actions. You also get to see how sentences are formed. In English, word order is very important, and stories are a great way to practice understanding that. The way words come together in stories helps you develop a feel for natural sentence structure. 3. Perfecting pronunciation. When you listen to stories, especially when they're spoken aloud, you also improve your pronunciation. Hearing how words are pronounced in real-life conversations helps you speak more clearly and naturally. Stories give you a chance to repeat words and phrases, practicing the rhythm and flow of English. For example, try saying the idiom walking on air. It means to feel very happy, like floating. When you practice saying this, you not only learn a new expression, but you also practice how to speak it with confidence and clarity. As the famous Nigerian writer Ben Okri said, stories can conquer fear, They can make the heart bigger. Stories not only help us learn, but they also build confidence. The more you practice telling or listening to stories, the more confident you'll become in using English. 4. Using idioms in stories. Idioms bring stories to life, making them more engaging and interesting. Here are a few more idioms you can use in your storytelling. Walking on air, feeling very happy. For example, after hearing the good news, I was walking on air. Break the ice. To start a conversation in a friendly way. For example, she broke the ice by telling a funny story. Out of this world. Something amazing. For example, the food at the restaurant was out of this world. By using these idioms in your stories, you make your language more colorful and memorable. They also help you connect better with listeners. If you want to practice using idioms and storytelling to improve your English, don't forget to check out the videos on my channel. I've uploaded lessons that include storytelling techniques and idiom practice to help you become a better speaker and writer. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What is your favorite story? And how has storytelling helped you learn English? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, feel free to use any idioms we've discussed in your own sentences. I'd love to see how you use them. Chapter 3: Creating Your Own Story. Welcome back. Now that you know how storytelling can improve your English, it's time to create your own story. Don't worry if you've never done this before. Writing or telling a story in English can be simple and fun. The best part is, you don't need to be perfect. The more you practice, the better you'll get. In this chapter, we'll walk through the steps of creating your own story using simple words, expressions, and idioms. Are you ready? Let's get started. Step 1. Start with a simple idea. Every story begins with an idea. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be about your day, an imaginary adventure, or even a funny experience you had. For example, let's say you want to write a story about a day you lost your way in a big city. That's a great starting point. Once you have your idea, think about the basic structure of your story. Every story has 3 parts. Beginning. Where does the story start? Who are the characters? Middle. What happens to the characters? What is the problem or exciting event? End. How does the story finish? How is the problem solved? For example, your story could start with, I was walking in the city when, out of the blue, I realized I was lost. Notice how we've already used an idiom, out of the blue, which means something happened unexpectedly. Step 2. Add interesting details. Now that you have your basic idea, it's time to add details that make the story more interesting. What did the city look like? How did you feel when you realized you were lost? These small details make the story come to life. You can also use idioms to make your story even more fun. For example, I had butterflies in my stomach. This means you felt nervous. You could say, I had butterflies in my stomach when I realized I didn't know where I was. A blessing in disguise. This means something good comes out of a bad situation. You might say, getting lost was a blessing in disguise because I found a beautiful park I had never seen before. Adding idioms like these gives your story more color and makes it more memorable. Step 3. Build suspense. One of the most exciting parts of storytelling is building suspense. Suspense is what keeps your listeners or readers interested. They want to know what happens next. To build suspense, try to leave a little mystery or create a problem that needs solving. For example, you could say, the streets were crowded, and no matter which way I turned, everything looked the same. My phone battery was about to die, and I had no idea how I would find my way back. This makes the reader curious. They want to know how you'll solve the problem. Step 4. Create a strong ending. Every story needs a good ending. This is where you solve the problem or reveal what happens to the characters. Did you find your way back? How did the experience change you? For example, you could end your story with, in the end, a kind stranger noticed I looked lost and offered to help. We chatted for a while, and it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Not only did I find my way back, but I also made a new friend. See how the story comes full circle? You started with a problem, getting lost, and ended with a solution and a positive outcome. Step 5. Use idioms to make your story more engaging. As you create your story, try to use idioms that fit the situation. Here are some idioms that can work well in stories. Break the ice. To start a conversation with someone in a friendly way. For example, the stranger broke the ice by asking if I needed help. A piece of cake. Something that's easy. You could use this at the end of your story, saying, "Finding my way back was a piece of cake after that." Bite the bullet. To do something difficult. For example, I had to bite the bullet and ask for directions, even though I felt embarrassed. Using idioms not only makes your story more fun, but it also helps you practice using new expressions in a natural way. Practice makes perfect. If this is your first time creating a story in English, don't worry if it's not perfect. The more you practice, the easier it will become. You can start by telling your story out loud or writing it down. Once you feel comfortable, you can share it with others or even post it in the comments below. I'd love to read your stories and see how you use the idioms we've discussed. As Maya Angelou once said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." So don't be afraid to tell your story. You'll improve your English and you'll have fun doing it. If you need more help with storytelling, I've uploaded videos on my channel that give tips and exercises on how to create simple English stories. Be sure to check them out. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What kind of story would you like to tell? Share your ideas or even a short story in the comments. Let's keep practicing and improving together. Chapter 4. Storytelling for Speaking Practice. Welcome back. Now that you know how to create your own story, let's talk about how storytelling can help improve your English speaking skills. One of the best ways to practice speaking is by telling stories. Why? Because when you tell a story, you are using complete sentences, real-life vocabulary, and expressions that make your speech more natural. Plus, it's fun. Storytelling is an excellent way to build your confidence when speaking English. You're not just practicing individual words. You're practicing the flow of sentences, pronunciation, and most importantly, communicating your thoughts clearly. And the best part is, you can start with simple stories and build from there. Let's dive into how you can use storytelling to improve your English speaking skills. Step 1. Choose a simple story. To start, pick a simple story that you can practice telling. It can be a personal experience, something you've read, or even a fictional story you make up. The key is to choose a story that you feel comfortable with and that has a clear structure: beginning, middle, and end. For example, let's say you choose a story about a time when you had an adventure while traveling. You can start with something like, "Once when I was traveling, I got lost in the city and had to ask for help from a stranger." This sets up the situation and grabs your listener's attention. Step 2. Use idioms to make your story more interesting. Remember the idioms we've learned? Now is the perfect time to use them in your story. Idioms make your speech more lively and help you sound more natural. For example, you could say, "I had to bite the bullet and ask for directions." This means you had to do something you didn't want to do, but it was necessary. "Out of the blue, a kind person offered to help me." This means something happened unexpectedly. Using idioms like these keeps your listener interested and adds personality to your story. Step 3. Practice speaking slowly and clearly. When you're telling a story in English, especially as a beginner, it's important to speak slowly and clearly. This helps you pronounce each word correctly and gives you time to think about what you're going to say next. Don't rush. The goal is to communicate your story in a way that's easy to understand. For example, when you say something like, I was walking in the city when, out of the blue, I realized I was lost. Take your time with each word. This will help you build confidence as you practice. Step 4. Practice speaking in front of a mirror or with a partner. If you're shy about speaking English in front of others, start by practicing in front of a mirror. Watch how your mouth moves as you speak and make sure you're pronouncing the words clearly. You can also practice storytelling with a friend or family member who is also learning English. You can take turns telling stories and giving feedback. For example, after telling your travel story, you could ask your partner, "What do you think? Was the story easy to follow? Did I use the idioms correctly?" Practicing with a partner helps you improve and gives you a chance to learn from each other. Step 5. Use body language to tell your story. Another great tip for storytelling is to use body language. Gestures, facial expressions, and movement can help bring your story to life and make it more engaging. For example, when you say, "I was so nervous, I had butterflies in my stomach," you could put your hands on your stomach to show how nervous you felt. This not only makes your story more interesting, but also helps your listener understand the meaning better. As Neil Gaiman, a famous author, once said, "Telling a story is a way to navigate life and make meaning out of it." When you tell stories, you're not just practicing language, you're also learning how to express your ideas and feelings in a way that connects with others. Step 6. Record yourself and listen back. One of the best ways to improve your speaking is to record yourself telling a story and then listen back. This helps you hear how you sound and identify areas where you can improve. Are you speaking clearly? Are you using idioms naturally? Listening to yourself will help you catch any mistakes and improve over time. For example, after telling your story about getting lost in the city, listen to see if you use the idioms correctly. Bite the bullet, out of the blue, and a blessing in disguise. Did they sound natural? If not, practice again. Step 7. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice storytelling, the better you'll get at speaking English. Start with short stories and gradually work your way up to longer ones. Don't worry about being perfect. Just keep practicing and you'll notice improvement over time. If you need help practicing storytelling or using idioms in your stories, I've uploaded videos on my channel to help you with this. These videos include examples of how to use idioms in everyday conversations and how to practice speaking with confidence. Be sure to check them out. Let's hear your story. Now it's your turn. I'd love to hear your stories. Share a short story in the comments below, and if you can, use some of the idioms we've learned. It's a great way to practice, and I'll be here to help if you have any questions. Chapter 5. Using Stories to Build Confidence in English. Welcome back. In this final chapter, we're going to talk about how storytelling can help you build confidence in speaking English. If you've ever felt shy, nervous, or unsure when speaking English, you're not alone. Many people feel the same way. But here's the good news. Telling stories is a great way to overcome those fears and start speaking more confidently. Storytelling is not just about learning language, it's also about expressing yourself, connecting with others, and building the courage to speak up. When you practice storytelling, you practice speaking naturally and fluently, and with each story, your confidence grows. Let's explore how you can use storytelling to become a more confident English speaker. Step 1. Start small and simple. One of the best ways to build confidence is to start with simple stories. You don't need to tell a long, complicated story right away. Instead, Start small. Choose a short and easy story, maybe about your day or a memorable experience. The important thing is to practice speaking without worrying about making mistakes. For example, you can start with something like, "Yesterday I went to the park. Out of the blue, it started raining, and I had to run home." This story is simple, but it helps you practice speaking in full sentences and using an idiom, out of the blue. Step 2. Practice with idioms to make your story more engaging. Using idioms in your story not only makes it more interesting, but also helps you feel more confident. Idioms are fun to use, and when you get comfortable with them, they make you sound more natural. Let's look at some idioms you can use in your stories to express confidence or situations where you overcame a challenge. Bite the bullet. To do something difficult that you've been avoiding. For example, I had to bite the bullet and speak English in front of the class, even though I was nervous. Break the ice. To start a conversation or make people feel more comfortable. For example, I told a joke to break the ice before giving my presentation. The ball is in your court. This means it's your turn to take action or make a decision. For example, after the interview, the ball was in my court to follow up with a thank you note. These idioms help you express your emotions and experiences in a more engaging way, and the more you use them, the more confident you'll feel. Step 3. Tell your story in front of a mirror or to a friend. One of the best ways to build confidence is to practice telling your story in front of a mirror. This allows you to see yourself and focus on your facial expressions, gestures, and how you speak. You can also practice with a friend or family member. When you tell your story to someone else, it helps you get used to speaking English out loud, and you'll feel more comfortable the more you do it. For example, tell your story about the park and the rain to a friend. Say, "Out of the blue, it started raining and I had to run home. It was a blessing in disguise because when I got home, I found out I had forgotten my wallet." This adds a twist to the story using the idiom, "a blessing in disguise," meaning something good came out of a bad situation. Step 4. Celebrate your progress. As you practice telling stories, remember to celebrate your progress. Every time you tell a story, no matter how short or simple, you are improving your English skills and building your confidence. Don't be too hard on yourself if you make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process. Think about how far you've come. Maybe a few weeks ago you didn't feel comfortable speaking English at all, but now you can tell a simple story using idioms. That's a big achievement, and you should be proud of it. Step 5. Use stories to express your emotions. Sometimes the hardest part of speaking English is expressing how we feel. But stories are a great way to talk about your emotions and experiences. For example, if you felt nervous about speaking English in a new situation, you can tell that story. You might say, "I had butterflies in my stomach when I had to introduce myself in English. But after a few sentences, I started to feel more confident." By sharing your emotions through stories, you practice expressing yourself in English in a way that feels natural and personal. Step 6. Keep practicing. Confidence grows. Over time. Building confidence takes time, and that's okay. The more you practice telling stories, the more comfortable you'll become. Over time, you'll notice that you're able to speak English more fluently, with fewer pauses and with more expression. The key is to keep practicing, even when it feels difficult. As the famous author Stephen King said, if you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. The same is true for speaking English. If you want to become more confident, you need to speak a lot and practice a lot. If you need more help or ideas for practicing storytelling, I've uploaded videos on my channel that guide you through storytelling techniques. These videos are designed to help beginners practice speaking English in a fun and easy way, so be sure to check them out. Let's hear your story. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What story are you going to tell to practice your English speaking skills? Share your story in the comments below and feel free to use the idioms we've learned in this podcast. It's a great way to practice and get feedback from others. Thank you for joining me in this journey of learning English through storytelling. Remember, storytelling is a fun and powerful way to improve your English, build your confidence, and express yourself. Keep practicing, keep sharing your stories, and most importantly, enjoy the process. Until next time, keep telling your stories and growing in your English speaking skills.